Okay, welcome to this explainer. Today, we are going to unravel what I think is a staggering 40-year economic mystery. Why are some things astronomically expensive today while other things are just practically free? The data we're about to explore is absolutely fascinating, and I promise you, it's going to fundamentally change how you view the economy, your monthly bills, and really, the future of our society.
Think about this for a second. Why did a television, or really any consumer electronics, get roughly 85% cheaper over the last few decades? While getting vastly more capable, by the way, while a college degree got up to 900% more expensive. To understand this crazy paradox, we need to look at a tale of two totally distinct economic worlds between 1980 and 2020. It's essentially a story of incredible technological triumph on one hand and systemic, grinding stagnation on the other. So let's start with the inflationary world. In this reality, the cost of a college education skyrocketed by an incredible 900%. Now, if you've looked at tuition fees recently, this probably doesn't shock you. But seeing the sheer scale of it over a 40-year period, it's breathtaking. It has completely outpaced general inflation, making higher education this massive, sometimes crippling financial burden for everyday families. But, the financial pain isn't just isolated to education. Medical care wasn't far behind at all, inflating by a massive 600%. Think about that. Despite all our incredible medical advancements, the actual cost of getting care, of paying for medical services, and just navigating the healthcare system has multiplied exponentially. And then we have professional legal services, which march steadily upwards right alongside them, rising by 275%. Seeking justice, setting up a new business, or honestly just getting a basic contract reviewed has become something of a luxury. This isn't just a small bump in price. It is a structural barrier that literally prices ordinary people and startups right out of the legal system. Right, so let's flip the script and look at a completely different reality. In our deflationary world, telecommunications, so think data and voice costs, those plummeted by around 90%. And renewable energy, like solar and wind, their costs dropped by 85 to 95%. We are talking about a total, absolute collapse in prices for digital goods, energy, and physical electronics. When you break down the sectors, the stark divide is just undeniable. Look at this beautifully detailed table. Notice the red and orange at the top versus the green at the bottom. Human labor services, like education, healthcare, and legal, they soared in price. Meanwhile, digital and physical production deflated. Basically, the things we could mechanize and digitize became incredibly cheap and abundant, while the things that still rely on traditional, manual human labor became fiercely expensive. So, the absolutely crucial point here is understanding why this happens. The diagnosis for this massive macroeconomic price divergence is an economic principle known as Baumol's cost disease. It essentially explains that in sectors where we just haven't been able to mechanize or automate the labor, like, say, a lawyer drafting a bespoke contract or a doctor diagnosing a patient, costs go up. Why? Because wages rise across the broader economy, but the productivity in these specific fields hasn't dramatically increased. We're still doing these jobs pretty much the exact same way we did a century ago. Look at this stark juxtaposition to really drive Baumol's point home. If we zoom out a bit further, moving from horse-drawn carriages to modern electric vehicles collapsed our transportation costs by 99.68% per hour of travel. We mechanized physical labor brilliantly, but over the last 40 years, legal services went the exact opposite direction, inflating by 275%. We successfully engineered our physical world, but our mental and administrative world, it is still stuck in the past. And here's the thing, this legal inflation acts a hidden contagion across the whole economy. Get this. The U.S. legal services market is valued at $331 billion. That means the U.S. actually spends more on legal services than the direct output of its entire agricultural sector, which sits at around $222 billion. Think about that for a second. We spend more money arguing, complying, and regulating than we do growing the actual food that feeds the country. It's wild. And this brilliantly illustrates how this legal tax infects those other inflationary sectors we talked about earlier. Take healthcare. Roughly 1 in every 9 healthcare dollars is consumed by defensive medicine and legal risk, rather than actual healing. Because doctors are terrified of liability, they end up ordering redundant tests and procedures. So, that 600% inflation in healthcare we saw? A huge chunk of it is actually just an overflow of our 275% inflation in legal costs. The root cause of all this, as you can see here, is that traditional law relies on bespoke brain muscular labor. A lawyer has to sit down and manually think through every single document, much like a horse uses its muscles to pull a cart. But in a global, highly connected digital economy, this traditional manual method is completely overwhelmed by network effects. We have mechanized the physical world, for sure, but we haven't mechanized the legal dynamics that govern it. The solution to this overwhelmed system is something called legal engineering. It is the drive to transition law out of this outdated horse and buggy era. Legal engineers aim to apply scientific, mechanical processes to human legal relationships. And we're not just talking about using a slightly better word processor here. It's about fundamentally restructuring law into computational language and smart contracts to finally crush those hyperinflationary costs and make law abundant.
Think of it like this. Just as transportation moved from the direct, muscular labor of the horse and buggy to the mechanical bus, and now toward automated vehicles, legal engineering aims to mechanize our legal vehicles. Right now, most legal work is stuck in that first panel, direct manual labor. Legal engineering pushes us into the middle panel, where we mechanize the heavy lifting of law, eventually paving the way for safe, scalable automation.
Now, what's really interesting is that this isn't some completely new idea cooked up yesterday. It is a technological trajectory tracing way, way back. You can actually draw a line from Pierre de Fermat's early calculus in the 1600s to Charles Goldfarb. He was a lawyer who invented markup language at IBM in the 1970s, which, by the way, became HTML, the very foundation of the internet. Then in the 90s, Nick Szabo, who studied both law and computer science, conceptualized smart contracts. And today, this whole thing culminates in Web3 and network states.
And why does that history matter? Well, because the foundational contributions of these legal technical minds have an undisputed causal relationship to a global digital economy that is now valued at over $20 trillion. Think about it. Over 17% of global GDP runs on the markup languages and digital contract rails envisioned by early legal engineers. They built the digital freeway. Now we just need the legal cars to drive on it. However, mechanizing law is, well, it's hard. When you build bespoke, mechanized legal apps, you immediately hit these really awkward regulatory gray areas regarding the unlicensed practice of law. Traditional nation-states make it very risky to experiment with these new legal technologies. That's exactly why network states and special economic zones, like Prospera in Honduras or certain initiatives in Switzerland, are emerging. They act as vital, safe sandboxes where innovators can legally experiment with these highly mechanized legal tools without breaking outdated regulations. Ultimately, the goal of legal engineering is incredibly practical and measurable. We want to make legal relationships abundant and accessible to everyone, not just the wealthy. We want to break even on administrative costs. I mean, imagine a world where the setup cost for a family trust is just $10. We want to stop prohibitive regulatory friction from killing brilliant startup ideas before they even have a chance to launch. We have to shift that red inflationary curve we saw at the beginning into a green deflationary one. So I want to leave you with this final, somewhat provocative thought. We saw that 99.68% collapse in transportation costs. If we successfully mechanize the physical world to crush costs and make our lives infinitely better, what is truly stopping us from doing the exact same thing to the law? If we can engineer a car to literally drive itself, how long until we engineer our legal system to finally serve us all efficiently? Thank you so much for exploring this data with me today in this explainer. Keep asking those hard questions.